Hello there. I'm Dr. Lipi Roy, and welcome to my show, Health, Hockey, and Leadership. Today's guest is someone who's been around the hockey world for decades. He has developed trusted relationships with all the top NHL players, coaches, executives, and he has the best stories. I'm so delighted to talk to Kevin Dupont, a senior staff writer and columnist with the Boston Globe, who's been covering their sports beat since 1985. So he knows all things Boston Bruins and Red Sox. Prior to the Globe, Kevin wrote for the New York Times, covering the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Devils. For his stellar dedication to hockey, Kevin was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2002. I spoke to Kevin during the Four Nations face-off in February. We talked about crazy travel schedules, sleep or lack thereof, diet, players' health routines, the psychology of sports, and much more. Let's get started. Well, hello there. This is Dr. Lipi Roy, and we are in Boston Globe headquarters in Boston, and I am with the one and only Mr. Kevin Dupont, longtime Globe reporter covering the sports beat. You're going to tell us where you were before, but just before we start, Kevin, you and I actually go back years. We actually met on social media, nothing salacious or controversial. We were very active on Twitter, I guess now X, and Kevin always writing about sports, tweeting about sports, hockey, as well as other sports, but I'm the hockey fan. I reached out to you asking you nerdy, dorky questions about hockey, and you so graciously answered, also sarcastically answered, but that's your style, which totally totally resonates with me. Hello, doctors have the darkest sense of humor. But it's so good to see you, Kevin.
It's great to see you, Lippy. Yeah. I thought I was going to say needy, dorky medical questions on my part, but that's okay.
Well, that too, and then the bond happened over time, over years, because you then asked me questions, medical questions, health questions. Yes, sometimes dorky, but I don't like to judge people who ask me health questions. So, Kevin, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm well, thank you very much. Yeah, still plugging along on the beat here with the Globe for the last 40 years, and overall more than 50 years. I gave you a brief tour of the building here today, and it took me way back in time to a whole different era.
And before the Boston Globe, where were you before that?
So I started here as a kid. It wasn't in this building, but I started here as a kid in college, and that was 1973. And then finally got a staff writing job, as we would have said then, down the street, which was at the Boston Herald. Yeah. And I wrote there for about 6 years, and then I went to the New York Times for around 3 years as a staff writer there in the sports department, which no longer exists. I like to say I helped them put them out of the sports business, which frankly I hate even to laugh about, but if you don't laugh, you cry.
Yes.
So, and then left there after 2 or 3 years and came back here in 1985. So.
And been here ever since. They have not gotten rid of you yet.
No, they try.
Got it. Very cool. Well, look, you've been you're such a great storyteller, but I also know that reporters, journalists like you, like doctors, you don't exactly have a 9-to-5 job.
No.
That I can resonate with that very much. Give me a sense, and the viewers here, a sense of what your life is like and what a sports writer's life is like.
Well, I always frame this by saying it soon sounds like carping and complaining because of the hours, right? Which I suppose they pale in comparison to some doctors' hours, especially doctors as they're training through. Yeah. But there are many, especially game days. If I give you a game day, leave the house around 9 a.m. and don't come back until the next day around 1 a.m. Because especially in hockey, there are morning workouts. Then you have to write off of the morning workouts. You have to write for, as we call it, the digital product. And we also write for the pulp product, which is vanishing these days, but still the traditional newspaper. So it's a long day of reporting, writing. Then the game begins around 7 hours after you've already been out for 10 hours. And then you're writing during the game, and then you write after the game, and then, of course, whatever distance it is to get home. So
and then you're also...
Those are long days.
I think people forget, I totally forgot that as reporters, you're also covering the practices, right? As you point out, like the morning workouts.
Yes.
So you're there for that. So you're at the arena as early, if not even earlier, as the players. You're observing all that. You're also you're in the press box, or you're with the press, interviewing the players or coaches, maybe pre-game, workout, and then you're around there after the game, so you have to stay there, observe the whole game, and then stay afterwards to interview them.
Right. Yep, you've got it. You've got it all down. Well, I would say the thing that has changed most significantly over my 50 years of doing this is the access to the most important people for me, which is the players. I mean, there's all sorts of important people in the process.
Sure.
There's the players, there's the coaches, there's the trainers. Outside, there's the general manager, the assistant general manager, the team president, the doctors.
Yep,
you know.
yep.
But what's happened over the course of time, all that has winnowed down because, for various reasons. Some of it HIPAA, because.
Sure.
I can give you an example. We can talk about this later, about a tragic accident here of a player. Well, in those days, I was at Vancouver General. I just walked into the hospital and I walked right into his room.
Wow.
Right? No signing of papers, no protocol. You know.
I'm guessing that's not allowed now.
No. There's nothing allowed now.
Right.
And in fact, the mistake by the reporter, and this is me, and I mistake all the time, is I just take for granted that I don't have access,
right.
or that they won't answer the phone.
Right.
Well, you find out sometimes you get lucky, right?
Right.
So you can't give up that gene,
Yeah.
but you're basically being groomed,
Yeah.
lack of a better word,
Yeah.
being groomed to the process.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because ultimately I work for the Globe,
Yeah.
but I'm writing for the reader.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
The copy editors may say differently.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
but I'm writing for the reader. I want to be read. So in most cases, the fan, you get some fans who don't see it this way, but you're the fan advocate in terms of you want to find out, you want to get answers, and it's harder to find out. It's harder to get answers. And in a corporate sense or an industry sense, and this is true across the sports, they don't want to give answers. They don't want to give information. There's a whole lot of reasons for it.
I can see, well, first of all, I appreciate, as a fan, I appreciate you being a fan advocate, because you want to be able to tell the best story. In order to get that best story, you want to get the best information. On the other hand, thank you for sharing that story about the Vancouver Generals. For those of you who don't know, you should know I'm Canadian, from Toronto, but I, as a patient advocate, I can see why, especially today, they would frown upon just anybody, not that you're just anybody, but to limiting that information, because I do, as a hockey fan, obviously I'm concerned about the hockey players and their health. I want them to do well, but the doctor side of me also very much values their privacy, right? And their health, whatever happens to their health in terms of injuries. The fan side of me wants to know, but the doctor side of me reminds everyone that it's really nobody's business, right?
Right.
So
and as a reporter, typically, especially it's one thing if you're just dealing with a game.
Yeah.
What happened to the game? You made a lousy play on this. What happened?
Yeah.
You frame it differently than that, but rather than saying it's a lousy play, that was kind of an unfortunate play, right?
Right.
So, but in many instances, if almost every story you're going to tell is you're going to deal with someone on a personal basis about their finance, about their history of health, about their relationships, whatever.
Yeah.
So you soon, if you're doing the job correctly, you soon get into these areas that you've got to learn how to venture into them.
Exactly. So you described an example of a very long day for a home game. You're based in the Boston area. Mm-hmm. That's for a home game. Do you also go on the road with the teams and cover them?
Yes.
So give me an example of, so say you're covering the Boston Bruins, as you have for years, and Boston's playing away. They played here tonight, say, and then 2 days later they're playing, in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Then what do you do?
Well, like anybody else out here, you just have to. You're talking from a travel perspective.
Yes.
Travel perspective. Right now, in my mind, there's the airline industry has turned into a hellhole in so many ways. So it adds layers of stress. Now, if I went back 30 odd years as the reporter traveling with a team, and this was fairly universal throughout the leagues, typically you were invited on the team charter and the team buses. So it made life pretty easy, right? It added some stress in that they leave very quickly after the game to the next city.
Sure.
So you would have to be prepared to write very quickly. They're not waiting for you. You've got to get on the bus on time. You've got to get on the plane on time. You've got to have your documents, all that.
Yeah.
But again, you learn the process.
Yeah.
Now you're not only you're doing that on the road, you're doing it alone in the conventional stream of business that everyone else is doing it.
Right.
So you're showing up, and you can alleviate some of that with TSA Express or pre-check, all those things. But the airports are difficult. The scheduling is difficult. There are fewer flights to fewer places.
But you're flying independent from the
that.
team now.
Yes.
Got it. So you're arranging your own kind of travel.
And we were. I underscore there. We were on those team charters. We were paying to be on them.
Understood.
We that was part of the agreement. Which again, that was fine. It was such a convenience.
But I mean, when I think of like the hockey regular season schedule, 82 games, I think only the NBA can really compete in terms of that, like, just degree of.
Well, baseball's got 162,
True.
and I did that beat for a while. Yes.
Insane.
Yeah.
So
it's mental illness.
And we'll get to the mental illness. Luckily, you're talking to a doctor. So you're traveling, and we're talking, and the Bruins are playing Las Vegas and Golden Knights. You're traveling. If the team's traveling, you're traveling.
Yes.
And so tell me what that's like in terms of like your sleep. Are you eating? Are you eating? Like, I'm guessing not. It's hard to eat 3 regular meals.
Yes.
Like, what's that like for you on the road?
Well, I can tell you the challenge of it, and many of us, and I won't say struggles with this, because what often has been characteristic of sports writing, and this goes back decades now. It's not so typical today. Certainly, obesity was part of the prep, and alcoholism. Yeah. The alcoholism really, from what I've seen, and who knows what goes on when guys leave the rink, but I don't see it anymore. When I got in the 70s, you could still see guys really struggling with it, and there was sort of networks to cover it up, I guess.
Are you talking about players or the reporters?
No, on the reporting side. I can't speak to the player side, but we do know. Yeah. When I started in, specific to the NHL, there was no player assistance program.
Right.
And there has been for the last, I don't know, you could tell me, I guess 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
So they admitted they had problems with drugs, with alcohol. On the writer's side, mosely alcohol, and that has really dissipated.
I don't remember. Do you remember? Because I know you were in New York covering in the 80s the New York Islanders dynasty.
Yeah.
I remember hearing stories and seeing footage of like players. I don't know if I saw footage, but I definitely talked to players and coaches who said players were smoking in not only before and after the game, but even during intermissions.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
The players were smoking. So if the players were, I imagine the reporters were smoking and drinking.
Yeah. Well, sure.
All that, right?
I could go to your industry too. Okay. I can remember magazine ads from the 40s and 50s, doctors endorsing cigarettes, right?
Hey man, everything he's saying is true. I don't endorse any of that now. This is pre my era, but absolutely.
But that was, I have to say.
Well, doctors used to smoke like when you'd come to see them in their clinic. They just
no kidding.
I mean, it was. Yeah. It was a different era, different time. But so it's interesting to me, and as Kevin, as my viewers know, not only am I a physician, but I specialize in addiction medicine.
Right.
So I am not surprised to hear about the level, maybe alcohol consumption, cigarettes, because it also ties in very much so with stress. The more stressed a person is, the more they rely on things to relieve that stress.
Yes.
Right? Whether it be or lack of sleep, tension, tight deadline, the stressors of meeting those deadlines and everything you said. So I am not surprised to hear any of that. So then when did you eat?
It's still an issue, quite frankly. Thankfully, I didn't have my struggles with alcohol.
Yeah.
Did have my struggles with food.
Yeah.
It took a long time to get to a good place with that. But much of that is because you're tired. It's late. You get, it's 12:30 in the morning, 1 in the morning. Yeah. Now virtually all our travel is alone, but there'd be 2 or 3 other writers. Oh, let's go have a beer and let's go have a 1,500 calorie cheeseburger and fries. Can't get enough of it, right?
So let me just share that during residency, my God, especially if you're a Q4 call, so every 4th night you're doing overnight in the hospital. So you're getting there at 7 in the morning and you're there until the following day to see how you're then presenting to the attending physician at 8 in the morning the next day, and then you're finishing up your notes and you're giving the warm handoff to your fellow interns, residents. They take off, but by the time you leave, it's like 12, 1 o'clock. So
speaking in tongues.
And if you're lucky, overnight you might get maybe an hour sleep, 2 hours, 3 hours maybe, but it's unlikely. And if it's do general medicine service. If you're in the ICU, I mean, forget it. Cardiology service, the oncology service. So yeah, I can. And if you're in the ICU, you're on call every third night. And if you're in my surgery colleagues, because there are fewer of them than internal medicine, you're on call almost every second night. So yeah, not the glamorous life that everyone might think.
Is that still the protocol today?
I mean, now they're moving more towards like shift work. So you're doing 12, 14-hour shifts. So emergency medicine's always been like that.
Right.
Surgery's very much been like that. But they still have there's pros and cons, believe it or not. I kind of was
right.
I hate to look at it now and say I loved it, but I didn't. But the benefit of like watching a patient, you can see how he or she does all night, and there's
You're connected
there's
to
a
the
real connection, but there's a learning process where you see how the patient really does and how he or she declares themselves. So from a clinical teaching standpoint, there's really something to learn about that. But in terms of no sleep, and what would I be eating? Well, it's again like you eat whenever you can, right? You're getting paged constantly. You're seeing patients. You're talking to the family members, a new admission, you're running to the emergency department, you're going to radiology. So if you're lucky, there's like crackers and peanut butter in the lounge, so you eat that. Right. The cafeteria is still open. By the time you go and eat something, grab it, bring it upstairs and eat when you can. But yeah,
mindless eating.
You're eating while you're typing in the note, putting in orders, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I can very much relate to
That's exactly the same.
Lack of sleep. Yes. Yeah. Maybe fewer people on your flights and in the game coding, and so you're not doing it code blue, hopefully. But yeah, very much lack of sleep, very poor eating. So yeah.
So the pyramid is stupid eating, right?
Yes.
Bad sleeping, and what for me helps balance it out is exercise.
Well, there you go. Yes. Yeah. So was there time for you to work out, exercise when you're either with this crazy schedule?
Yeah, and what I've become for over 30 years now is very avid about walking and walking typically at a really stiff pace for about 45 to 50 minutes a day, which is usually 3.5 miles. So over the course of, this sounds like I'm boasting, but where it works out to is I get 3 marathons in a month at this pace, which allows me to eat pretty much anything I want. Right?
Well, so for
in restricted volume.
So Kevin, let me just tell you, let me just wear my doctor hat again and say I'm really impressed by that, because what the studies show actually is that if you can get, the recommendation is 20 minutes of cardio every day, or 30 minutes 5 days a week. You're already getting that, you're exceeding that. If you can at least manage that, you will reap the benefits of exercise, which include releasing the happy hormones, the dopamine. You're releasing all these endorphins that will actually improve your mood, improve your immune system, boost your immune system. So all of that's amazing. But this is what I try to do. Like I try to find creative ways to get a workout in. This is what I tell my patients as well. You don't have to be running a marathon. You really don't. You just need to maybe use a staircase instead of the elevator. Maybe park your car a little further away. Just get your walking in, your cardio in, maybe a light jog, running up and down the stairs. All of that is great cardio, And then even like getting in some weights, all of that you'll reap the benefits. And then for sleep, I try to be very intentional now. I try to get my 7 to 8 hours every day. It doesn't always work out, but I try to really be intentional about that. And if I'm not, then I'm asking myself, why is that? I'm now at a stage in my life and career where I have a bit more control over my schedule. Back when I was working in the hospital as a resident, I mean, the hospital owned you, right? So, the training institution owned you, and you had to do what what the schedule said, right? So, but well, Kevin, this is...
if I could just add one little thing here, is that over these decades now that I've done it, I've looked at that piece as, yes, it's exercise, and there's a mental health aspect to it, definitely with me in terms of how I feel, but I see it as hygiene. I see it as essential as taking a shower every day, and as brushing my teeth every day, right? I wish I did it 3 times a day, but if the second day comes and I haven't done it, I really feel grungy.
Yes.
Right?
Good for you.
So if you can, again, no doctor, no expert in exercise or any of it, but what has worked for me is perceive it as hygiene, do it every day, and walking is easy.
Yes.
Swimmers tell me it's also easy for them.
Yes.
I'm not much of a swimmer.
Yeah.
And you've got to find the pool.
No. Yeah.
Walking, is instant.
It's so not labor intensive, right? You don't need, unlike hockey, which we both love, where you need all that equipment and the skates.
Yes.
It's so user friendly.
Out the door. And with music.
With music, I would recommend just good pair of shoes, good walking shoes, riding shoes, whatever. And even when it's cold weather, like it's in the high 20s right now when you're in Boston. But you know what? You bundle up. You layer up. You bundle up. Make sure you don't get frostbite. Cover the hands, but get that cardio in. Kevin, this is really amazing. There's so many questions I want to ask you.
Please.
But so now, as you know, the title of this show is, this series is Health, Hockey, and Leadership. We both love hockey. I know you cover it. You've covered it for decades now. What does hockey, especially the National Hockey League, mean to you?
Well, to me, to strip it down, the National Hockey League is a business. So I look at it, yes. I mean, there's so many layers to this when you're not the fan anymore, and I was the fan as a kid. In fact, there was a four nations face-off is going on as we speak, and Canada, the USA had a big fight right off the top the other night.
They had 3 fights in the first 9 seconds.
Yeah. Does it get any better?
I don't think I've ever seen that happen. Yeah. Remember back in the 70s, the Broad Street Bullies, Philadelphia. Well, I don't know what the Boston Bruins were called, but no one was tougher than the
Big
Boston
Bad Bruins.
Big Bad Bruins.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But apparently a resurgence happened. Team Canada versus USA.
Right, and we don't see that much anymore. And as the professional and the journalist, I totally understand it. If you're running a multi-billion-dollar business like Gary Bettman and Bill Daley, you can't be selling that sport to commercial enterprises. You can't be inviting in Ford and Hertz and men's products and women's products and all these things and be condoning fighting and people suffering from CTE and getting themselves so dinged up through concussions that they go looking for drugs and it'd be just for relief. And I've seen some of those guys. It's awful to watch.
Yeah.
As the 16-year-old fan, or even younger when I loved it. I couldn't wait for the next fight. So people do love it. There is the Roman Coliseum aspect to it.
To be clear, so the viewers know, that game was in Montreal. Were you there?
I wasn't there that night, no.
Okay, but you have been at those games, and know when they're fighting, what are the fans doing?
Oh, they love it.
Screaming and cheering, they can't get enough. Yeah. Let me just share. So it's a business. The fighting, it's kind of good for, I guess, viewership.
Oh, sure, and that's just part of it. So National Hockey League means covering the games, but there's so much more than just the games. There's the labor agreement. There's the physical aspect of it. But ultimately, as the reporter who's assigned to the beat and assigned opinion, you are working for the reader, and you're looking for stories that they'll enjoy.
Right.
Sometimes they won't enjoy them when you're telling them the truth, and that's kind of not a dicey area, but I'll get a lot of emails from people who say they don't want to read about this. Well, I don't necessarily want to write about it, but it's the right thing to write about because it's newsworthy, because people are getting hurt, because the business is in peril, whatever it is. Yeah. I've been through lockouts, I've been through strikes. Yeah. So as a reporter, you've got to understand labor, you've got to understand basic practices of medicine. Yeah. You get into a lot of areas, and the longer you do it, ideally you become a better reporter and a better writer. Yeah. That is not universal by any means. Yeah. And especially as you get older, there are added advantages just from your age and from fatigue. And to be honest, and I've seen this happen a lot, and you have to safeguard against it, you become caustic to a degree. You become a nerd to the process. You've heard the stories before. Yeah, I have, but my reader hasn't, so I have to get it. And there's a lot.
Well, you brought up the fighting, but it's not just through fighting, but there's rather high levels of a brain injury, including concussion. You mentioned CTE, so that's chronic traumatic encephalopathy. High rates of that. We certainly see that in football. We see that in soccer. We see that in a lot of sports. But hockey is that's just one. And so the brain injuries are one. The TBI, traumatic brain injuries, are one example. But I mean, the players get hurt.
Yes.
We see that it's the nature of the game. And again, a longtime hockey fan, you hate to see players get injured. Even I believe it was Game 1, Team Canada versus at the Four Nations. It was a hit from behind, and one of the players, I think Shea Theodore, has now a wrist injury, and now he's out for the tournament. So, but there's musculoskeletal physical injuries, neck, knees, hips, ankles, all that. But there's also, there's NHL athletes are human beings, right? So they have the same organs, brain, liver, kidney, heart,
Right.
as everyone else. So the players are always dealing with health issues. Every team has like an entire, just a squadron of healthcare folks, right? From their team physician, team orthopedist, team dentist. At first, I'm like, why do they have their? I'm like, oh, that's right, they get hit in the
You're
mouth.
right. Yeah. There's a lot of
sticks.
dental issues. Yes.
You forget that. So they have own team dentist, and so recently I've been. Stay tuned for future episodes where I'll be talking to team doctors for a couple of different teams. So there's all of that. So thank you for explaining to me what the NHL and what hockey means to you. And then my last question, Kevin, is what does true leadership mean to you?
I just want to talk, if I can touch back on something you said there. Over the arc of my career, so I've watched that, as you described it, and very, very adeptly, about the layering of expertise around them medically.
Yeah.
When I started, the trainer, it was really, the trainer ran around with scissors, tape, and some aspirin. And that was pretty much the treatment for these guys.
So perhaps
right?
a little less sophisticated.
Yeah. This was the same era when you got on the charter flight. As the charter reached a certain degree on takeoff, you could hear the empty beer cans rattling under the seats, right? So that was part of the medicine too.
Yes. Well, Wayne Gretzky talks about how he was steak and potatoes, and he'd have like hot dogs and cheeseburgers. I mean, now I think when Wayne was asking, it was I think John Cooper, and he brought along to Rick Tocchet, longtime player, now coach of the Vancouver Canucks, and Wayne said, hey, because they're harking back to their Team Canada tournaments from the Olympics and the Canada Cup. Hey, are they still having steak and potatoes? He's like, Rick is like, dude, half the places are all gluten free now.
And chicken and pasta.
Oh my God! I thought that was really
in the end, Gretz said to the waitress, the wait staff said, well, you can tell Mr. Keenan, who was the coach, Mike Keenan, that if Mr. Gretzky doesn't get his potatoes and steak, Mr. Gretzky's not playing.
It was I died. And no, because that's right. Wayne tells the story. He was asking the waitress, "Are there any steak and potatoes?" No. Okay, ice cream with hot fudge sundae. And he's like, chocolate syrup. And she's like, no. Okay. She said, I think Mr. Keenan said no, or Mr. Keenan said no. Then he said, well, tell Mr. Keenan that I'm not going to be playing tonight. The great one, 99.
Gotta get my ice cream and my hot fudge sauce.
And then, of course, he says, I got my steak and potatoes. And then Paul Pinson says, of course you did. And then, of course, it matters because I believe Team Canada won the gold.
But leadership.
What does leadership mean to someone like you?
Well, if we were talking on the print side, we'd talk about something else, but I think you're talking about sports.
No, you define it any way you want.
Well, I'll talk about it sports because I think it'd probably be more interesting to your viewers, which is true leadership that I've witnessed. I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time doing Bruins, and they've had some great captains, and Patrice Bergeron, Zdeno Chara, who we could do this whole show on, Zdeno Chara.
Amazing. I will just Kevin was kind enough to share with me that Zdeno Chara, 6'7"?
All of that, 6'9" maybe.
And then, but the way he took care of his health, I mean, exercise freak, workout freak. Yes. I think he changed his diet. I think by the end he was like vegan. I'm not really
absolutely.
sure.
Yeah.
But
to which he wouldn't have a Caesar salad. You know the food better than I do. He wouldn't have a Caesar salad because it had an egg in it.
Because I believe the dressing itself also has certain things that are not.
Baked potato, no butter, Kevin.
To
do Z's voice.
And then they're all. I mean, again, we'll do other shows just talking about like athletes and their regimens. But going back to the leadership you were talking about, and then Ray Bourque. I mean, these legendary captains.
So what it is I suppose it's somewhat redundant to say this, but it's leadership by example. I mean, they were there in each of those instances. They were the best player on the team. No one like Ray Bourque, best defenseman I've ever seen. And I know people will come back with Bobby Orr, and you can make a case for a lot of these. You can make a case for Bobby Orr, you can make a case for Denny Potvin, but for watching Ray Bourque start to finish from age 18 to, he'd been a little bit older than that, as a teenager, to age 40, and still the best player on the ice at age 40.
But it's more than just that, though. It's not just it's not just when they're playing, it's all the preparation. It's all of that, right?
Yes. Yeah, dedication, no question. And especially, and you see this across the board in sports, it's all the work behind in the back room, if you will.
Right.
It's weight room. And Chara was maniacal about this.
He was a beast.
Yeah, as his agent called him, Matt Cater, the agent, called him a killing machine. Killing machine in the sense of just, could not be on a will aspect.
Yeah.
Everybody gets beaten on a play. Everybody.
Of course.
Right? Bobby Orr got beaten
Of
on
course.
plays. Wayne Gretzky
Of
got
course.
beaten on plays.
Yeah.
But from preparation, dedication to the craft, dedication to skill, unparalleled. And that's true with all of them. Bergeron, Chara at the very, very top, Ray Bourque as well.
Yeah.
So to me, leadership is understanding the mission, seeing it through, being unrelenting about it, unremitting in terms of how you go about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's the players, and then you also saw it from coaches as well, right?
Yes, yeah. Now coaches have a whole different, at least by my eye, and I'm sure you'll get coaches on. So much of the coaching thing to me is psychology, especially, and then there's a lot more than that. The cliche in the business is putting people in the best positions to succeed.
Right.
And that really is. And so if we're going to talk about just hockey, we could talk about all sports.
Right.
In hockey, it's getting the right line together, get the right D pairings, understanding score and circumstance, score and time, especially who to be on the ice when, who not to be on the ice when, because defense isn't their thing, right?
Yes.
I hear this all the time about David Pasternak, people complaining that he give away, and I heard this about Ray Bourque too, but he gives away the puck so much. Well, yeah, if you're the guy most responsible to have the puck, guess
right.
what? You're going to give it away.
Statistically, right? Obviously,
yeah.
right.
So I would say overall the most important part is dedication to the craft.
Well, I love that that's how you define leadership, because so much of what you said really resonates with me from a health standpoint, but also just what leadership means in terms of how you observe it and what I've observed as well. It's so much. It's teamwork, but it's also individualizing it. Recognizing that, say, a captain like a Ray Bourque, like a Patrice Bergeron, recognizing, hey, you've got 20 different teammates. They all have their own personalities. They all have their different skill sets. They all have their ups and downs, weaknesses and strengths, areas for improvement. How do you relate to them? Different captains have their different styles, right? So a Patrice Bergeron has a very different personality from a Brad Marchand, right? Who's I believe the current captain.
Yes.
A Sidney Crosby. You're talking about dedication to the game.
Perfect example.
Ray Bourque, for over 20 amazing Hall of Fame career. Sidney Crosby, who's going to be a future Hall of Famer.
Matt Sundin in
from Maple Leafs, so a former Team Sweden.
Right.
I mean, very different. A Joe Sakic. I mean, you look at these different players. They're maybe a bit more on the quiet side, maybe not as vocal, but nobody at all questions their leadership. You know a leader when you see them, right?
Yeah.
They
no
knew
question.
They knew the game, but you lead by example, right? From everything I've never met Sidney Crosby. I hope to meet him sometime soon, but he's like the first on the ice, the last to leave. I know that Chara, all these they were all the same way. You just lead by example.
Right.
And you have to be kind of the hardest working. I mean, they're not genius players by accident, right? I'm sure they were gifted to a certain degree, but it's hard work.
It is hard work, and I'm really venturing out of bounds here in terms of my expertise. But I think for some of them, there is also a compulsive, I'll say the OCD thing, that to be that good, you have to be so driven,
Yes.
and so much of the skill set is redundancy.
Yeah.
Do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods on the driving range, Vijay Singh, who was highly successful, known for playing the 18 holes and then doing another 2 hours at the driving range after the 18 holes, right?
Well, then there's, just bringing back to hockey, there's the classic example. Wayne was talking about how, his dad, Walter, built a pond in their backyard
Right.
from the age of 3. Nobody told, his parents didn't say, you have to be out there skating. He wanted to be skating from age 3, like in the morning, 8 in the morning,
Right.
until like late at night. And the parents said,
Yeah.
you have to come in now
Yeah.
for dinner and then be back out there. So again, not everyone has it, not everyone needs to, but there's some people that just love it. To your point, it's probably obsessive.
It is.
It's drive,
definitely.
it's obsession, and when it's an unhealthy obsession, yes, it can become pathological. You mentioned the OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Yeah, but yes, I firmly believe there's an obsessive and a compulsive component to it, without maybe it being a disorder. They happen to use those skills in a way that happens to be very productive and has led them to success.
Right.
So I agree. Like leadership, I see the same kind of qualities.
What's interesting there, though, you brought up the example, which is sort of a classic Canadian example, especially because of climate these days. But having the pond or the skating rink in the backyard. So many of these kids who are in the league today, especially from the Canadian culture, did grow up with that, with very dedicated dads or moms out there spraying.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
But the reason I bring that up is it doesn't take the best sneakers or the best equipment to buy in.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll get the sneakers and you'll get the rest of it.
Yeah.
But you've got to make that central to your life.
Absolutely.
Not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
For good and bad, right? Chara grew up in Slovakia, no money, a communist state at the time.
Yeah.
And he started with a backyard gym that his dad did. So, making stuff out of the apple trees, like pull-ups in the apple trees and the garden. He had like 8 stations in the backyard. And he started as a young teen and stayed with that.
Yeah. Last note, before I say bye, Kevin, you mentioned psychology. Earlier we were talking about mental health. There's an aspect of your job, my job, of a hockey NHL athlete's career that's very much, if not even more, psychological and mental than it is physical. Yeah. You've already heard that, the expression, the psychology of sports, that psychology of competition, that Game 7, that what we're probably going to see here in the Four Nations, the one game elimination kind of games. Like there's, with the preparation, the stress, and now with the current age of the social media, I've talked to players like Chris Pronger, we talked about, and Ken Morrow from the New York Islanders back in the 80s. They didn't have social media and Twitter and Instagram where you always have to watch what you're saying and what your performance, because if you have a bad game, it's going to be all over. It's going to go viral. So I wonder, first of all, as a long-term sports reporter with this crazy kind of schedule, what do you do to maintain and preserve your own mental health? And then what do you think that these athletes are doing today that they didn't maybe 20, 40 years ago? Well,
on my side, it's definitely the exercise element, to be out there every day and get some form of 45-minute workout. And 95% of that is my walking.
Yeah.
So there's a spirituality content to it for me too, belief in God and all those things that I know a lot of viewers get turned off by that, but that's part of it for me.
But walking itself is very meditative too.
Yes, yeah,
right?
yeah. And I've done a little bit of this, if you're familiar with the forest bathing idea of being in the forest and just be in quiet and shutting down. I don't do that enough, but that helps immensely. Yeah. Have a dog. The dog helps immensely too. Craziness of a pet.
Pet therapy, it's a real thing.
Yeah, yeah. So there's you've got to find your escapism.
Yeah.
But central to your question, to go back.
And then with the athletes, how do you think are they really? My sense is that they're really taking mental health seriously today than they did 40 years ago.
Yeah. So when I started in the late 70s, there was no team psychologist.
I think every team has a team psychologist now.
Every team does. A lot of teams didn't have a physical therapist. They had, as I described, they had a trainer with a roll of tape and a pair of scissors and aspirin. That was it.
Just so specialized now.
So, and it took real reform in thinking among general managers. Not all of them, but a number of them, to start allowing the health advocates, if you will, the health professionals, to come in and start.
And to your point, the player assistance program that developed, that really exists 40 years ago, I don't believe, right? So.
But I think what happens now is aware parents get, if they see they've got an elite athlete, and typically they see that by a fairly young age, and I think in some cases too young, 12 or 13, they already get them involved. I think they many of them, not all, many of them understand the mental health aspect, the need to look for other interests as well. Yeah. You mentioned Sidney Crosby and his humility. That's common. So it's a very, as I'm sure you do, you spent your life in addiction medicine, I guess. not I guess, I know, that it's a very complex puzzle. The mind is a very complex puzzle, and it's no different for athletes.
Absolutely. And in many ways, it's heightened. I mean, some of these guys, they're kids, Kevin. They're like 18,
Right.
19, entering this professional league. All the money, the attention, the pressure.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact, because this is what I do, these are all risk factors to leading to like high-risk substance use, mental health issues like depression, anxiety, PTSD. They all have lives before they even enter the league, right? So things that I do, I mean, I think most people know I have a pretty stressful job, and I still see patients a few days a week at an opioid treatment program with substance use disorders, and my own travel schedule, speaking, training, working on training other people on both addiction and mental health issues. I am a big believer in mindful practice. I meditate every morning for 20 minutes of transcendental meditation. I pray at night. I have a gratitude journal because studies show that people who express gratitude are happier people live longer. So all of these things, yoga once a week. I actually had the honor of meeting Austin Matthews, one of the best players in the game right now, captain of Team USA. I met him in Germany over the last summer, and I just asked, what do you do like to really relieve the stress of your very stressful job? He's like, and he said, I believe in mindfulness. I like meditating. He also said that the Leafs have a wonderful health team, and but so I think a lot of these athletes are also really believing in and practicing mindful practice because they recognize it's a stressful job, and this career, it's not going to last 30-40 years like you and I. We're lucky we have long careers. Our player's career is very much finite.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So
National Hockey League, and this is true of many of the sports, 6-year average career. 6 years in the league. Now, many of them put in American League career to get to it.
That's right.
So
that's right.
They don't. We get accustomed to seeing 18-year-olds coming in and thrive.
Yes.
And think they're going to play here for 10 and 12 years. That's really the rare example. There's so much of the rosters, which is sort of churn and burn.
And like the Ray Bourques and the Sidney Crosbys are the rarest of the examples that have 20-year careers, right? So a lot of that, it's luck. I mean, you mentioned like the Bobby Orrs and the Ken Moores, who only 10-year career, stellar careers, but it's unpredictable, right? And so it kind of goes back to what I said earlier, the G word of gratitude, and just being very grateful for what you have. And I mean, to get to be playing in the National Hockey League, it's the elite league, right? That's a blessing.
Right.
And I think just to be able to really appreciate that, I think most of the players do. And you are in a position where you get to meet a lot of these players and tell their stories. And I think something that you and I have in common, Kevin, I mean, for you it's very obvious. You are a reporter, you are writing stories, but even as a doctor, I get to meet patients and tell their stories. And I get to do a lot of media work, and through my YouTube show, I get to tell these stories. And I think it's just a real blessing. And I have such immense gratitude to you, Kevin, for knowing you for all these years. And I'm really grateful to you.
My pleasure.
You're a rock star.
Wonderful to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
I am so grateful to Kevin for the generosity of his time, for giving me a tour of the Boston Globe headquarters, and for his friendship all these years. Over 40 plus years, he has witnessed a lot of changes in the NHL, from the way players prepare on and off the ice to how they address their physical and mental aspects of hockey. We also talked about how to manage stress. Kevin is an avid walker, which keeps him physically and mentally fit. The dog helps too. NHL athletes face a great deal of stress. During the playoffs, I paid special attention to commentary from the media and from fans. When Austin Matthews didn't score or when Stuart Skinner didn't make a save, the feedback was relentless. And I get it. I'm a fan. But very few people have jobs that face such public scrutiny. And if you're 19, 24, 31, underperforming, worried that your contract is tied to your on-ice abilities, and this doesn't even include off-ice stressors. Johnny Gaudreau's tragic death shook the league. Imagine his teammates who had to keep playing knowing he'd never come back. Islanders' #1 draft pick, Matthew Schaefer, was visibly emotional when talking about the recent loss of his mother, Jenny, from breast cancer. Everyone's going through something. Talking about it reduces the stigma and helps people get the care they need and deserve. Poorly managed stress and trauma can lead to self-medication, substance use, addiction, depression, sleep disorders, and other health problems. If you're struggling with any of these issues, please get help. It's available. On that note, thank you for watching. Here's your joke of the day, hockey themed. What do a hockey coach and a dentist have in common? They both use drills. Well, that's all for today. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, write comments below, and follow my Instagram at Health Humor Harmony Dr. Roy. Be well, and I'll see you soon.